So, if I'm making this video, if it's getting released, the game is back in the App Store in the United States and pretty much globally. Yes, Fortnite Mobile, and you feel the passion, the maximum passion crawling back. But everyone's good now and seems like Peter bought. It does not seem anything like Chapter 2 Season 3. How do you catch up? This is where SenseIP, I guess self-acclaimed, comes in with the 10 tips and tricks for you guys, the returning iOS Fortnite mobile players. I played this game pretty consistently in the last 4.5 years, as you can see with my channel, and have learned a lot as a result. Hopefully these tips can get you right and maybe even nurture the next I am noob, the next mobile booga or something. First, the thumbnail tip. If you haven't already, use tactical sprint as much as you can. This button looks like a person running, find it right here, and as you can probably guess, it is useful in many situations. The obvious is rotating. I click this button as often as possible when I'm moving across the map, and when it refills stamina, again, literally just wait for it to refill stamina, click it again. Autopilot app it. This helps me get ahead of zone in good positions fast, get to fights faster, and will help you in tournaments, especially during Endgame. When going for height, get in the habit of clicking the button. Sometimes the other player doesn't, and though slight, this can give you the advantage to get height. If any of y'all have watched me 1v1, you'll notice that whenever I do my 90s, I tactical sprint. It kind of became a habit. This can also be combined with jumping and crouching. To save stamina, people will spam crouch, or spam slide I guess, until they get where they need to be. Jumping can also be useful for a mechanic called the super jump, in which whenever you tactical sprint and jump off of builds, you have a farther jump than usual. But bottom line, apply this movement somehow, as it is becoming important very fast and is like one of the major things that has changed since iOS's ban. Second, fighting for height in build fights is overrated. It doesn't mean as much as it did in Chapter 2 Season 3. 4.5 years ago, if you got above the other player, it pretty much meant you won the fight. Nowadays, the other player will play box fights, make a bunch of boxes, so playing to build above them will get pointless fast, especially if they don't fight back and sit in their box. And trust me, there's a few of those players. This used to not be an issue, but way more players box up quickly and immediately than Chapter 2 Season 3, and they make a lot of boxes. So, what do you do now? Play a box fight for tops or double edits is probably the easiest thing you can do, or diagonally from the opponent. If attacking vertically, you want to play for double edits to the left, right, or above on the opponent, straight above. If you can take these pieces, you have a free edit and pump shot down. That's usually how I try to box fight them. Despite this, the most popular and orthodox normal way to attack is through diagonal box fights, in which you make a box that is diagonal to theirs. Here you can bait them to edit on you with your pickaxe, spray the wall, do whatever you need to get the opponent to edit, in which you can then play a right hand peek by resetting the wall, unlike in other setups. Whatever you choose, try not to spam build fight, box fight, a way more essential skill in modern Fortnite. Third, if you remember Arena, you'll know the loot pool was adjusted to be the same as competitive tournaments, meaning broken items were usually left in pubs. This is not the case for ranked. The loot pool in public matches and ranked BR are exactly the same for reasons I don't know, meaning that players you'll fight may be overusing that broken item, vehicle, utility, etc. If you want to counter this, you can do two things. A, either play with only weapons in the comp loot pool to get you more adjusted for comp, which will put you at a disadvantage in ranked, but I personally believe is better in the long term, as it gets you more used to raw fights. Or B, you can play scrims or comp loot pool customs, which only have the comp loot pool in them. These were introduced a year or two back and require a custom code to play. Unfortunately, most of these scrims are annoying for fighting, as you pretty much have to follow the zone rules, but that is an advantage in itself, as playing scrims is the easiest way to get an advantage on other mobile players and easily the biggest skill gap that mobile players as a whole face. Many pro mobile players are extremely consistent in fighting and can pretty much solo entire lobbies just due to the sheer practice they run through in ranked, 1v1 zone wars, anything fighting based, you name it. However, in tournaments, many players falter not only due to lack of FPS, but experience in stacked endgames, especially those storm surge lobbies. Though I would say that's partially due to FPS, but that's besides the point. Scrims can easily get seen as boring, which makes sense to most, as most of the game is spent farming mats and positions may be unrealistic in comparison to actual tournaments. Like, you may be able to get a position you wouldn't be able to get in a tournament, as no fighting is usually allowed. However, many players need to learn the basics you learn from scrims, which is the positioning, which is where you'll be able to come in advantageous over the other mobiles. Skills like scanning around you for potentially limbs, sitting in your box looking through the cone, finding the dead side in different set zones, especially moving zones, and knowing when to tank zone for position are easily developed in these situations. If you can put your head down, watch endgame based educational videos, VOD review and find your mistakes, and fix them over a large amount of scrim matches, shoot, you might just become a top 1% mobile player very fast without even fighting to get there. Shout out Mahatma Gandhi. On the topic of endgame, storm zones have changed. Kinda. A lot of the zones function as the same, especially early game zones and moving zones. However, the number of zones has changed. In Chapter 2 Season 3, it was only 9, and now it is 12. The game length is about the same, as zone timings have been slightly adjusted for this sake. Here they are for those curious. And in specific, the most notably changed zones are 6th and 7th. For these two, half of the zone is in storm and half of the zone is outside of it. Ideally, you can rotate to the storm side in these zones, or the side covered by zone, as nobody will be there, and it'll make future rotates after these zones easy as you're on dead side. These may take a little bit of time to get used to, but once you understand them, and have an advantage over more players than you'd think, including PC players, trust me. Now, on the topic of that, sometimes you gotta adapt. A lot of educational creators will push learning fundamentals, which do help, but for certain situations, those might not be the best play. For example, sometimes to get the jump on your opponent, a left-hand peek may be necessary, which goes against at least 75% of educational Fortnite fundamental videos, even though in the moment it's the right play. Another example is rotating late to zone. Going early to zone is preached, but sometimes if there's too many players ahead of you, this will just end up making you go down early to getting that lobby focus of doom and despair. Why do I bring this up? Because in Chapter 2, Season 3, you could probably get away with only applying fundamentals, pretty much solely those rules, and be a really solid player. However, a lot of players now know these basic fundamentals you knew, so standing out and dominating with that same knowledge will be way harder. Now, it's kind of a matter of experience as well, experiencing certain situations in game and adapting to the moments in question. Sometimes you just gotta have it happen in game. Another way to do this includes watching PC pros. If you can't figure out how to look at a certain situation, they probably have, as they've pretty much experienced everything in this game and have the answer to about 99% of situations, whether early, mid, or endgame. Going off of adaptation, just to get it out there, mobile tournaments, mainly fighting mobile players, is different than PC players in their tournaments, at least in my opinion. From my experience in the Reload Cups, the most recent mobile tournaments, they're actually the same as those in Chapter 2 Season 3. A lot of the fights are literally decided off who has better awareness and who gets the bigger initial beam. This is due to mobile players depending on footsteps a lot, meaning that when you're crouching, they're way more vulnerable, they can't see you. Most players are also not as skilled as defense as offense in comparison to PC players, so if you get the initial beam, it is likely GG's, you have won the fight. If you play mobile tournaments, make sure to be as aware as possible. Scan around you, look behind you, in front of you, all over the place, so this doesn't happen, as many players will use this strategy to win fights, especially since a lot of players play off region, meaning they're high ping and are pretty much dependent on getting that beam. Don't expect to be piece controlling crazy in fights, as even though it's a good thing to practice, it won't always be necessary, especially if you're on 150 ping, not on your main region. Adding to things that have stayed the same since Chapter 2 Season 3, SMGs or fast fire weapons are still broken. The mobile aim assist is still on these weapons, which I can definitely vouch using them. A good example is in Reload, where before this recent update, the combat SMG reigned supreme. Many mobile players did extremely well on high ping using that weapon, as they could beam low ping players from 200 to 0 HP before they could even react, and it had 0 recoil, which was really stupid, but that's besides the point. They're also good in 50-50 situations for the same reason. You could literally win a fight against a shotgun in a box just because these weapons were that busted. What am I trying to say with this section? If you can find an SMG in game, at least in Reload, there's a solid chance it'll be one of the best weapons you can get just off of mobile aim assist accuracy and shooting speed alone. Now, for a topic I know many will be curious about, performance. As of now, I mean, if devices are optimized, you can kind of skip past this point, but as of now, devices like the iPad Pro 2018 are nowhere near as strong as they were 4 to 5 years ago, and this shows in game with significantly lower FPS, especially in normal Battle Royale. These performance issues could range from the lower FPS, more input delay, and even for some, freezes here and there, especially if you record while playing. Because of this, the alternate Battle Royale modes, Reload and Fortnite OG, run significantly better than the main variant. In both, I've noticed my input delay and FPS to be the closest possible to creative, specifically in OG, making fighting way easier than in normal BR. With the popularity of Reload and minimum strength the devices need to run OG, I don't see this changing for a while. I don't see FPS not being too crazily bad for a while, regardless of the performance nerfs or bugs that mobiles will inevitably get. How can I verify this? Ever since the two released, I've noticed them running consistently well, and now with more active mobile players incoming, there's only more reason for this to say the same. Finally, for my competitive players, my mobile tournament, PC tournament grinders, competitive isn't restricted to normal Battle Royale. Tournaments can also be hosted in Reload and OG modes. For those that recently watched the Fortnite Pro-Am, shout out Ali A, you can probably see why I'm bringing this up. It won't change for a while. OG may not become as large, probably won't become as large, but Reload is literally a bigger mode than normal Battle Royale as of the filming of this video, at least in terms of ranked players. Because of this, Fortnite has made tournaments for this mode specifically, and these tournaments have a lot of players. I'm talking over 200,000. Yes, in a recent Skin Cup, over 100,000 duos played, which is literally numbers comparable to FNCS at its peak. Absurd. As you saw me say earlier, the mobile tournaments were also hosted through Reload, which I'm assuming is because less players were needed to queue into a match and better performance for devices. Because of this, it may just be the move to practice Reload. The Lootpool is very similar to Chapter 2 Season 3 and prior, basically Pump Shotgun meta and Golden Scar being goated. But knowing how to play around and use rebooting or the rebooting function in whatever game mode to your advantage may be important. This feature alone may secure extra eliminations, which Peterbot and unfortunately Ali A know, and can turn around or grief your game depending on which side you're on, especially if you reboot too late. So when you get back on the game, practice normal Battle Royale and Reload, because who knows what future tournaments, especially on mobile, will bring. With that being said, those are my 10 tips for returning Fortnite mobile players. I hope at least one of these tips helped you guys and will make you better at one of, if not the most competitive mobile shooter out there, Fortnite. Comment whatever you're thinking, I'll try to answer it. Sensei P out. Peace.